Hello friends. Welcome to the DXD Tales. How are you all? So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Issei was the true Devil King of the 72 Pillars. Issei x Rias Gremory x Grayfia Lucifuge. Also be sure to subscribe and like this video. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. The Awakening. Crimson skies stretched across an alien landscape, bleeding into horizons that had never known the touch of human feet. Massive obsidian spires pierced upward through swirling clouds, their surfaces reflecting fractured light from three moons hanging impossibly close. A throne carved from what appeared to be crystallized blood sat atop the tallest pinnacle, empty yet somehow expectant, as though awaiting its rightful occupant after eons of abandonment. Issei Hyodo stood before it, 17 years old and thoroughly confused, dressed in his Kuo Academy uniform that seemed jarringly out of place in this otherworldly realm. The air tasted metallic, like freshly spilled blood, and each breath carried whispers in a language he almost understood. "Come," the throne seemed to say, though it possessed no mouth. "It has always been yours." Issei's feet moved without conscious command, each step leaving ripples in the seemingly solid ground beneath him. The closer he came to the throne, the more the world around him pulsed with power, life, as though his very presence awakened something dormant in the fabric of this reality. "Not yet," another voice interrupted, ancient and reptilian. "The seals remain. The time approaches, but he is not ready." A massive scaled claw descended between Issei and the throne, belonging to a dragon so vast its body obscured the crimson sky. Its scales gleamed like polished rubies, eyes burning with emerald fire that seemed to look through Issei rather than at him. "Who am I supposed to be?" Issei asked, his voice surprisingly steady despite the overwhelming presence before him. The dragon's laughter rumbled like distant thunder. "You ask who you are. Perhaps first ask what you are, young king." The ground beneath Issei's feet suddenly cracked, a chasm opening into endless darkness. As he fell, the dragon's final words followed him into the void. "Awaken soon. They have found you." Issei jerked upright in bed, sweat-soaked sheets tangled around his legs and heart hammering against his ribs. The familiar walls of his bedroom offered little comfort after the vivid intensity of the dream. His alarm clock displayed 3:17 a.m. in angry red digits, the third consecutive night he'd awakened at precisely this time. "Same dream," he muttered, pressing palms against his eyes. "Getting worse." Reaching for the glass of water on his nightstand, Issei froze when he noticed the surface of the liquid trembling, forming perfectly concentric ripples despite the absence of any movement. As he watched, fascinated and unnerved, the water began to steam, then bubble, until it suddenly boiled over, glass shattering as it hit the floor. "What the hell?" Issei scrambled backward, staring at the spreading puddle and glass shards. This wasn't the first inexplicable incident in recent weeks. Light bulbs burning out when he grew angry, small flames appearing when his emotions spiked, his shadow sometimes moving independently of his body in his peripheral vision. The doctor had found nothing physically wrong with him. His parents suggested stress from university entrance exams. Issei had stopped mentioning the occurrences altogether after seeing the growing concern in their eyes. Carefully avoiding the broken glass, Issei moved to his window and pushed it open, welcoming the cool night air against his feverish skin. The suburban neighborhood sprawled quiet and ordinary below, house's dark except for occasional porch lights. Nothing like the alien landscape that haunted his dreams. For a moment, he thought he caught a flash of crimson in the sky, a streak like flowing hair, but it vanished when he blinked. Exhaustion playing tricks, he reasoned, though certainty eluded him. "I'm losing my mind," he whispered to the empty night, unaware of the figure watching from a rooftop 2 streets away. Her crimson hair indeed flowing in the gentle breeze. Rias Gremory lowered her specialized binoculars, frowning thoughtfully as she observed the ordinary-looking house where something decidedly extraordinary dwelled. Her expression betrayed neither excitement nor concern, merely focused calculation, the look of a chess master evaluating an unexpected move by a worthy opponent. "Another incident?" asked her companion, a petite white-haired girl crouched beside her, expression blank yet somehow alert. "Yes, Kaneko. The third this week." Rias tucked a strand of crimson hair behind her ear. "His power fluctuations are increasing exponentially. At this rate, every supernatural being in Japan will sense him within days." Kaniko's nose twitched slightly. He smells different tonight. Less human. That's what concerns me. Rias stood, her Kuo Academy uniform replaced for this mission with form-fitting black attire that allowed for better movement. The energy sig. Nature isn't matching any known devil family. It's older somehow, more primal. Akeno is cross-referencing it with the archives as we speak. The smaller girl rose silently. We should bring him in. Not yet. I need to understand what we're dealing with first. Rias's eyes narrowed as she gazed at the ordinary house containing the increasingly extraordinary boy. The timing is suspicious. Ancien. Chi seals in the underworld began resonating exactly when his power started manifesting. Coincidence. Rias's laugh was soft but utterly devoid of humor. In our world, Kaniko. There's no such thing. The wind shifted suddenly, carrying a scent that made Kaniko stiffen. Fallen angels, she whispered. 3, no, 4. Moving this direction. Rias's expression hardened. So we're not the only ones who've noticed him. This complicates matters. She pulled a small communication circle from her pocket, whispering urgently into it. Kiba, Akeno, converge on these coordinates. We have Grigori, interlopers approaching our person of interest. The circle pulsed once with acknowledgement before disappearing into motes of light. Should we intercept? Kaniko asked, already shifting her weight in preparation. No, we observe for now. I want to see what they know. Rias's eyes gleamed with dangerous intelligence. But be ready to move if they threaten the boy. Understood. Neither devil mentioned what remained unspoken between them, that their orders were surveillance only, that intervention would require explanation to powers beyond even the Gremory family's considerable influence. That something about this human boy had caught the attention of forces that should never have noticed someone like him. And that the crimson dreams Rias herself had begun experiencing were somehow connected to the ordinary boy in the ordinary house who was proving to be anything but ordinary. Morning arrived with stubborn insistence. Sunlight filtering through blinds. Issei had forgotten to close after his nocturnal episode. He moved mechanically through his preparation routine, dark circles under his eyes betraying another night of interrupted sleep. Issei. Breakfast. His mother's voice carried up the stairs. Painfully normal in a world that felt increasingly less so. Coming. He called back, buttoning his Kuo Academy uniform jacket and glancing at his reflection. Same unruly brown hair. Same unremarkable features. Nothing about his appearance suggested the strangeness that seemed to be consuming his life from the inside out. Yet something in his eyes looked different, hint of luminescence that hadn't been there before. He leaned closer to the mirror, watching with detached fascination as flecks of emerald green sparked in his ordinarily brown irises before fading back to normal. Just tricks of the light, he muttered unconvincingly, turning away. Breakfast proceeded with agonizing normalcy, his father hidden behind a newspaper, his mother fussing over perfectly prepared food. Conversation limited to school performance and weekend plans. Issei answered automatically, nodding or shaking his head when appropriate, while inwardly cataloging the increasing wrongness he felt within his own body. The sensation of something pushing against his skin from the inside. The occasional flash of knowledge about things he'd never learned. The dreams, always the dreams, of the crimson world and the waiting throne. Issei. His mother's voice broke through his thoughts. You haven't touched your food. Are you feeling unwell? He forced a smile. Just nervous about the math test today. His father lowered the newspaper, offering a sympathetic smile. You've been studying hard. You'll define. Issei nodded, taking a deliberate bite of rice to satisfy their concerned looks. These people who had raised him, loved him, worried about mundane things like test scores and university applications. How could he explain that something inside him felt increasingly alien, as though his humanity was being diluted by something ancient and powerful? He couldn't, not without risking their sanity or his freedom. So he ate his breakfast, promised to do his best, and left for school with the practiced normalcy of a boy who hadn't spent the night communing with dragons in impossible worlds. The walk to Kuo Academy took him through familiar neighborhoods and past familiar faces. Yet today, everything seemed slightly off-kilter, as though he were seeing the world through subtly distorted glass. Colors appeared more vivid, sounds more distinct, scents more complex. When an elderly neighbor waved from her garden, Issei found himself momentarily transfixed by the complex network of veins visible beneath her skin, pulsing with life and fragility. "Get it together," he muttered, quickening his pace. These moments of hyper-awareness had been increasing, making ordinary interactions feel surreal and dangerous. Ahead, the gates of Kuo Academy appeared, the P.R. Prestigious former all-girls school now in its third year of co-education. Despite the integration, female students still outnumbered males nearly 3-1, a statistic that had once been the focus of Issei's teenage interest. Lately, though, even his hormonal distractions had been supplanted by more pressing concerns, like maintaining the appearance of normalcy while feeling progressively less human. "Yo, Issei." The call came from his left, where his friends Matsuda and Motohama waited by the school gate. The self-proclaimed, perverted trio, had once been inseparable, united in their appreciation of the female form and their collective unpopularity with the actual possessors of said forms. Issei raised a hand in greeting, forcing enthusiasm he didn't feel. "Hey, guys. Dude, you look like death warmed over," Matsuda observed, adjusting his glasses. "Were you up all night with that new collection I lent you?" Motohama leaned closer, studying Issei's face with scientific precision. Dark circles, pallid complexion, slight tremor in the left hand. "I diagnosed terminal horniness." Their laughter felt distant, belonging to a version of Issei that was rapidly receding. He manufactured a smile. "Just couldn't sleep. Stress, probably." "Well, wake up," Matsuda insisted, nudging him with an elbow. "Today's kendo team practice, and I found the perfect observation point where the hedge has thinned." Statistically speaking, Motohama added, pushing his glasses up his nose, "we have a 73.8% chance of viewing premium content before being detected. 2 weeks ago, this conversation would have been the highlight of Issei's day. Now, he found himself inexplicably irritated by its superficiality. "I think I'll pass," he said, surprising even himself. "Not feeling great." His friends exchanged concerned glances. This deviation from established behavior more alarming than any physical symptom. "Suit yourself," Matsuda finally said, though his expression remained troubled. "More opi for us, right?" Issei nodded, relieved when the first bell provided an excuse to separate. As he headed toward his classroom, he felt a strange prickling sensation at the back of his neck, the unmistakable feeling of being watched. Turning, he scanned the courtyard, finding nothing until his gaze drifted upward to a second-floor window of the old-school building. There, framed perfectly against the glass, stood a girl with flowing crimson hair and an expression of intense focus directed squarely at him. Even at this distance, her beauty was striking, aristocratic features complemented by a bearing that suggested nobility. Rias Gremory, third-year student, president of the Occult Research Club, and universally acknowledged as one of Kuo Academy's 2 great ladies. Their eyes met across the distance, and Issei felt a jolt-like electrical current pass through his body. For an instant, the world around him seemed to fall away, leaving only this strange connection humming between them. The crimson of her hair triggered a flash of his dream world, disorienting him. When his vision cleared, she was gone, the window empty as though she'd never been there at all. The second bell rang, startling Issei back to reality. He hurried to class, unable to shake the sensation that something fundamental had just shifted in his world, something connected to the crimson-haired beauty who had looked at him not with the usual female disdain he'd grown accustomed to, but with recognition. As though she knew exactly what he was becoming. The math test proved surprisingly straightforward. Or perhaps Issei's newfound hyperawareness extended to numerical patterns as well. Either way, he completed it with time to spare, leaving his mind free to wander back to the morning's strange encounter. Rias Gremory existed in a different stratosphere from ordinary students like him. Wealthy, beautiful, academically gifted, and surrounded by an equally elite circle of friends, she was as unreachable as a star. Yet the way she'd looked at him suggested something beyond the casual observation of a social superior noting an insignificant underclassman. She'd looked at him with purpose. With recognition. The final bell rang, releasing students into the afternoon. Issei gathered his belongings mechanically, mind still preoccupied with crimson hair and impossible dreams. He Declined Matsuda and Motohama's renewed invitation to peep on the kendo club, citing a headache that wasn't entirely fabricated. The strange energy that had been building within him all day left his temples throbbing and his skin hypersensitive. He needed air, space, solitude to process the increasing strangeness of his existence. The path home took him through the city park, usually bustling with children but oddly deserted in the golden afternoon light. Issei settled on a bench beneath a cherry tree, closing his eyes and focusing on his breathing as the tension headache pulsed behind his eyes. "Excuse me, are you Issei Hyodo?" Quote. The voice, female, hesitant, sweet, broke through his attempted meditation. He opened his eyes to find a girl about his age standing before him, hands clasped nervously at her waist. She wore a school uniform he didn't recognize, her long black hair framing a pretty face currently flushed with apparent embarrassment. Yes," he responded, somewhat bewildered. Pretty girls didn't generally initiate conversations with him. Her blush deepened. "I'm Yuma Amano. I've seen you pass this way several times and, well, would you go out with me?" Issei blinked, certain he'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what? I know it's forward," she continued, gaze fixed on her shoes, "but I've admired you from afar, and I gathered my courage to ask if you'd be my boyfriend." Several responses cycled through Issei's mind, most involving checking for hidden cameras or pinching himself to confirm consciousness. Pretty girls did not ask him out. Pretty girls didn't notice him except to report his peeping activities to disciplinary committees. Is this a joke? He finally managed, scanning the surrounding area for giggling friends or recording devices. Yuma's expression fell, hurt flashing across her features. "No, I really mean it. I like you." Something about her declaration felt off. Practiced, perhaps, or insincere, but Issei's 17-year-old seal experience provided limited tools for analyzing female behavior. Besides, what alternate explanation made sense? That a beautiful girl was approaching him with nefarious supernatural intentions. "I'd love to," he heard himself say, hormones temporarily overriding the caution that had become his recent default state. Yuma's smile appeared blindingly genuine. "Really? That's wonderful. Could we meet here Sunday at noon?" "For a proper date, Sunday at noon," Issei repeated, still processing this unexpected development. "Yes, absolutely. It's a date then." She clasped her hands together in apparent delight. "I have to run now, but I'm looking forward to Sunday." With a cheerful wave, she turned and hurried away, leaving Issei staring after her with equal parts confusion and elation. His first girlfriend, assuming this wasn't an elaborate prank. The possibility brightened his mood considerably, momentarily displacing concerns about boiling water glasses and crimson dreams. As Yuma disappeared around a corner, Issei failed to notice her smile transform into something predatory, or the brief flicker of violet light that surrounded her departing form. He also failed to notice the white-haired girl observing from behind a nearby tree, her expressionless face betraying only the slightest concern in narrowed eyes. She made contact then. Rias's voice remained calm as she received Kaniko's report, though her fingers tightened almost imperceptibly around the teacup she held. The Occult Research Club room, housed in the old school building's renovated top floor, in Victorian elegance with occult aesthetic. Bookshelves lined with ancient tomes stood alongside display cases containing artifacts of questionable authenticity. Plush furniture arranged around a central coffee table provided comfortable seating for the club's small membership. "Yes," Kaniko confirmed, perched on the edge of an ornate armchair. "She's using the name Yuma Amano. Asked him on a date for Sunday." Akano Himahima, vice president of the club and the second of Kuo Academies, two great ladies, poured more tea with graceful precision. Her long black hair, tied in a ponytail, swayed with the movement. A fallen angel approaching so directly, they're not even trying to be subtle. "They don't need subtlety if their goal is elimination," observed Yuto Kiba, the club's only male member prior to recent events. His handsome features arranged in a thoughtful frown. "Sunday gives them 3 days to prepare whatever they're planning." Rias set down her teacup, rising to approach the ornate window overlooking the academy grounds. "The question is why now? This boy has lived in our territory for years without incident. What changed to draw their attention at precisely the same moment his power began manifesting?" Coincidence? Hiba suggested, though his tone indicated he believed otherwise. There's no such thing, Rias and Akino responded simultaneously, exchanging brief smiles at the jinx. Kaniko's soft voice drew their attention back. His power felt different today. Stronger. Less contained. Rias nodded, having sensed the same fluctuation during her brief morning observation. Akino, what did you find in the archives? The dark-haired beauty's expression turned serious, all traces of her usual playfulness vanishing. Nothing definitive, but something interesting. The energy signature bears similarities to records from the Great War era, specifically to sealed documents regarding the original Satans. A heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the ticking of an antique grandfather clock in the corner. You're suggesting? Hiba began carefully, leaving the dangerous implication unfinished. I'm not suggesting anything yet, Akino clarified, only reporting a similarity that requires further investigation. Rias turned from the window, her expression resolute. Similarities to original Satan energy would explain the fallen angel's interest, and possibly certain other parties' sudden attention to our territory. She didn't need to specify which parties, all present understood the delicate political balance between devil factions. What's our move? Kaniko asked, practical as always. We continue observation through Sunday, Rias decided. We'll intervene only if the fallen makes a direct attempt on his life. I need more information before bringing him into our fold. And if your brother's people ask why we're allowing fallen angels to operate in Gremory territory. Hiba's question carried no challenge, merely pragmatic concern. Rias's smile turned sharp. I'll remind them that as heir to the Gremory household and assigned administrator of this territory, such decisions fall within my purview. Her tone softened slightly. Besides, 3 more days of observation may provide crucial information about what, and who, we're dealing with. The unspoken question hung in the air. What would they do if their suspicions proved correct? If an ordinary Japanese schoolboy somehow carried power connected to the original rulers of the underworld? Such possibilities were better left unvoiced, even in the privacy of the club room. Akino, continue researching the archives. Hiba, strengthen the boundary fields around the school and Hyodo's home. Kaniko, maintain close observation. Rias issued the orders with natural authority. Report any changes immediately, no matter how small. As her servants dispersed to their assignments, Rias returned to the window, gaze fixed on the distant figure of Issei Do making his way home across the academy grounds. From this distance, he appeared utterly ordinary, just another student among hundreds. Yet something about him called to her on a level beyond rational explanation. Something that whispered of shared destiny and ancient power. Something that matched the crimson landscape of her recent dreams. Issei's walk home passed in a daze of confused elation. A girlfriend, his first. The guys would never believe it without proof. He'd have to take pictures on Sunday, document the momentous occasion for posterity and bragging rights. Yet beneath the excitement lurked unease. The timing felt suspect, coming amid so many other strange occurrences. Still, what connection could possibly exist between his inexplicable symptoms and a cute girl asking him out? He was overthinking things, projecting his general sense of wrongness onto an objectively positive development. Best to focus on preparing for Sunday, planning conversation topics, choosing appropriate clothes. Perhaps researching date locations beyond the standard movie and dinner formula. The ordinary concerns of an ordinary teenager. How desperately he clung to that identity, even as evidence mounted that he was becoming something else entirely. His contemplation ended abruptly as he turned onto his street and noticed something amiss. The usual ambient sounds, passing cars, distant conversations, neighborhood dogs, had vanished, replaced by unnatural silence. The air felt thick, resistant, as though he moved through invisible syrup rather than atmosphere. Instinctively, Issei stopped, every newly heightened sense screaming danger. The street appeared normal yet fundamentally wrong, like a photograph with colors slightly shifted. Was this another hallucination, another symptom of whatever was happening to him? Finally alone. The voice came from above, feminine but lacking the softness of human vocal cords, as though something merely approximated a woman's speech. Issei looked up to find a figure hovering 20 feet above the street, black feathered wings extended from her back. She wore what appeared to be a costume consisting primarily of black leather strap. Arranged to cover minimal anatomy while maximizing exposed skin. Her face, framed by long dark hair, might have been beautiful if not for the cruel smile and eyes that glowed an unnatural violet. What the hell? Issei stumbled backward, mind struggling to process the impossible sight. The winged woman descended slowly, her laughter echoing unnaturally in the silent street. How disappointing. I expected more awareness from one carrying such power. She landed gracefully several yards away, wings folding against her back. Though I suppose that makes my job easier. Issei's brain cycled through explanations, hallucination, elaborate prank, costume party, before settling on the increasingly unavoidable conclusion that he was witnessing something beyond normal human experience. Who are you? He managed, voice steadier than he felt. What do you want? My name wouldn't mean anything to you, she replied dismissively. As for what I want, a spear of glowing violet light materialized in her hand, its energy humming with malevolent purpose. I've been ordered to eliminate the anomaly in this sector. That would be you, unfortunately. She sighed theatrically. I considered drawing it out, hence the date invitation, but my superiors grew impatient. Your power signature has been fluctuating too wildly, drawing unwanted attention. Better to remove the problem efficiently. The conversation's surreal quality momentarily distracted Issei from its lethal implications. Date invitation. You're Yuma. Her appearance shimmered, briefly revealing the girl from the park before returning to her current form. A simple disguise. Humans are so easily manipulated by pretty faces and feigned interest. The casual cruelty of the deception cut through Issei's confusion, igniting unexpected anger. So none of it was real. You were just setting me up to kill me. Don't take it personally. She twirled the light spear casually. It's simply risk management. Whatever you're carrying inside you has my superiors nervous. Which means you're too dangerous to live. Her smile widened. If it helps, you'd have never survived our date either. I'd have just played with you a little first. The anger inside Issei intensified, spreading through his body like fire through dry timber. The headache that had plagued him all day sharpened to blinding pain as something within him responded to the threat. Pushing against the boundaries of his humanity. I don't understand any of this, he ground out, hands clenching into fists as unfamiliar energy coursed through his veins. I'm just a normal student. The winged woman, fallen angel, some newly awakened knowledge supplied, laughed again. Normal. Your aura is practically screaming with power you don't even know how to access. She readied her spear. Don't worry, it will all be over quickly. She moved with inhuman speed, closing the distance between them in an eye blink. The violet spear thrust forward, aimed directly at Issei's heart, a killing blow delivered with professional precision. Time seemed to slow as instincts Issei didn't know he possessed took control. His body twisted aside, the movement too fluid and cracked. Iced for someone without combat training. The spear missed his heart but sliced across his side, tearing through uniform and skin to leave a burning gash. Impressive reflexes, the fallen angel commented, genuinely surprised. Most humans would be dead already. Issei staggered backward, pressing a hand against his bleeding side. The wound burned unnaturally, the light weapon apparently causing damage beyond physical trauma. I don't want to fight you, he gasped, though the fire in his blood suggested otherwise. Fighting implies both parties have a chance of winning. She created a second light spear in her free hand. This is merely execution. She attacked again, both spears driving forward in a crosswise pattern designed to prevent evasion. Issei, moving on pure instinct, dropped and rolled beneath the attack, coming up behind her with unexpected agility. His body was responding to the threat with skills he'd never learned, drawing on muscle memory that shouldn't exist. The fallen angel spun, eyes narrowing. What are you? She hissed, frustration replacing her earlier confidence. Issei wished he knew the answer himself. The pain in his side throbbed in time with his racing heart. Each beat pushing more of the strange energy through his system. His vision blurred, then sharpened beyond human capability, allowing him to see the complex patterns of light and energy surrounding his attacker. Last chance, she warned, gathering more light between her hands. Die with dignity or die screaming. Your choice. The threat broke something loose inside Issei, some final seal or barrier protecting him from his own nature. Pain exploded through his left arm, dropping him to his knees as the limb seemed to transform from within. Green light erupted from his skin, forming intricate patterns that resembled scales or circuit boards, or perhaps both simultaneously. Partner. The voice resonated inside his mind, ancient and powerful and distinctly inhuman. It is time to awaken. What's happening to me? Issei gasped, clutching his transforming arm as the green light spread. IAMDDRAIG, the Red Dragon Emperor. You are my current host, bearer of the boosted gear. The fallen angel's eyes widened in shock, recognition and fear replacing her previous confidence. A Longinus. Impossible. She hurled her gathered light in desperate attack, but the energy dissipated harmlessly against the green glow surrounding Issei. The transformation accelerated, covering his entire arm in what appeared to be a red gauntlet with a glowing green jewel embedded in the back of the hand. Boost. The voice, Didrag, announced, and Issei felt power surge through him, doubling his strength in an instant. The fallen angel launched into the air, clearly reconsidering her approach. This changes things. Raynor does not throw her life away needlessly. She sneered down at him. Enjoy your reprieve, boy. Next time we meet, I won't come alone. With a powerful beat of her wings, she vanished into the darkening sky, leaving Issei alone with his transformed arm and the voice in his head. She flees wisely, Didrag commented. You are not yet ready to face a fallen angel, even with my power. What the hell is happening to me? Issei demanded aloud, staring at the impossible gauntlet that had replaced his arm. What are you? I am one of the two heavenly dragons, sealed within the sacred gear you possess. As for what is happening, the dragon's explanation was interrupted by a flash of crimson light that materialized several yards away, forming a glowing magical circle on the pavement. From within this circle stepped Rias Gremory, her school uniform replaced by an elaborate black dress that emphasized both her figure and her otherworldly elegance. Issei Hyodo, she said, her voice calm yet carrying unmistakable authority. It seems we have much to discuss. Issei stared at her, the day's accumulation of impossible events finally overwhelming his capacity for rational thought. The pain from his wound, the energy drain from the gauntlet's activation, and the sheer cognitive dissonance of his reality being systematically dismantled combined to push him past his limits. I think I need to sit down, he managed weakly, before darkness claimed him and he collapsed unconscious to the pavement. The last thing he registered was Rias Gremory's concerned expression as she moved toward him with inhuman speed, and the strange sensation of falling not just into unconsciousness but into a new existence entirely. Issei dreamed of the Crimson World again. But this time he wasn't alone before the obsidian throne. A massive red dragon coiled around the spire, its scales gleaming like freshly spilled blood in the strange light of the alien moons. Didrag, Issei said, recognizing the beast without introduction. The dragon inclined its massive head. You know me now, partner. But do you know yourself? I'm Issei Hyodo, he answered automatically. The dragon's laughter rumbled through the landscape, shaking loose fragments of crystallized reality that floated upward rather than falling. A name given to you by humans who found you. Not who you are, but who you were hidden as. I don't understand. You will. Didrag's enormous eye fixed on him, reflecting Issei's confused face in its emerald depths. The seals are breaking faster than anticipated. The convergence approaches. Speak plainly, Issei demanded, frustration overcoming his awe. The dragon shifted, scales rasping against stone. You were not meant to contain both powers. The sacred gear was intended as a mask, a distraction from your true nature. But combining dragon and devil royal blood created complications. Devil royal blood, Issei repeated incredulously. I'm human. Are you? Didrag asked, sounding genuinely curious. Test that theory. Sit upon the throne. Issei looked at the crystallized blood construct with newfound apprehension. What will happen if I do? Either confirmation or immolation, the dragon replied matter-of-factly. The throne of the original Satan rejects all false claimants. That's not reassuring. It wasn't meant to be. Didrag's massive head lowered until it was level with Issei. But the time for hiding approaches its end. Your awakening power has already drawn the first hunters. Others will follow, some seeking to destroy you, others to control you, a few perhaps to serve you. Issei stared at the empty throne, its crimson surface seeming to pulse with anticipation. And if I don't want any of this? If I just want my normal life back? The dragon's expression, insofar as reptilian features could convey emotion, turned almost sympathetic. That path closed the moment your powers began manifesting. The choice now is not whether to awaken, but how to survive the awakening. A tremor ran through the crimson landscape, fracturing reality around them. Ddrake's massive head turned toward the horizon. Our time grows short. The devil girl approaches your consciousness, seeking to bind you to her service. Rias Gremory. Bind me how? Devils resurrect humans as servants through objects called evil pieces. Modeled after chess pieces. Ddrake's tone carried disapproval. She intends to use one on you, believing you a human with a powerful sacred gear. Another tremor, stronger than the first, sent cracks spider webbing across the crimson sky. You must decide quickly, partner. Accept her peace and gain temporary protection while sacrificing independence, or reject it and face what comes alone but unbounded. Issei looked from the dragon to the throne and back, overwhelmed by implications he barely understood. What would you do? The dragon's laugh held genuine amusement. Dragons bow to none. But you are not only dragon. Ddrake's massive form began dissolving into particles of light as the dreamscape deteriorated. Choose based on what you are, not what you were or what others wish you to be. As the crimson world faded around him, Issei felt himself being pulled back toward consciousness, toward decisions that would reshape not just his life, but apparently the supernatural world he'd never known existed. Awareness returned gradually, sensations filtering through layers of disorientation. Soft fabric beneath him, gentle hands on his chest. Murmured, voices discussing his condition in clinical terms. The scent of expensive perfume mingled with something older and earthier, incense perhaps, or magical components. His wound is healing remarkably fast. A female voice observed, familiar but not immediately identifiable. The light damage is already neutralizing. It's the sacred gear, another voice replied, this one he recognized as Rias Gremory. The boosted gear grants accelerated healing to its host, a necessary adaptation for containing a dragon's power. Issei opened his eyes, blinking against soft lamplight. He lay on an ornate Victorian couch in what appeared to be the occult research club room he'd heard rumors about. Kneeling beside him, hands glowing with gentle blue light over his injured side, was Akano Himahima, the Sku's second great lady, and vice president of the club. Standing nearby, watching with intense focus, was Rias Gremory herself. Welcome back, she said, noting his consciousness. How do you feel? Issei attempted to sit up, wincing at residual pain from his partially healed wound. Like I've been stabbed by a light spear and had my entire understanding of reality shattered, he replied with surprising frankness. So, not great. A hint of smile touched Rias's lips. At least your sense of humor remains intact. That's promising. Akano withdrew her hands, the healing light fading. The wound is stable, he should rest. But there's no immediate danger. Thank you, Akano. Rias approached the couch, studying Issei with unnerving intensity. You have questions, I imagine. About 1,000,000, Issei confirmed, carefully maneuvering to a seated position. He noticed his left arm had returned to normal, no sign of the red gauntlet that had appeared during the attack. Starting with, what was that thing that attacked me? And why did she want me dead? Rias settled into an armchair across from him, folding her hands in her lap with aristocratic precision. That was Rainer, a fallen angel, former servant of heaven who was cast out for various transgressions. As for why she targeted you, her gaze fixed on his left arm. She sensed what we've been monitoring for weeks, the awakening of a powerful sacred gear within you. Ddrake, Issei said without thinking. The Red Dragon Emperor. Surprise flickered across Rias's perfect features. You've communicated with the dragon spirit already. That's unusual for a newly awakened sacred gear. Issei noticed she didn't seem merely surprised but concerned, as though his rapid progression contradicted her expectations. He Rekka, LLED Ddrake's warning about her intentions and found himself choosing his words more carefully. We've spoken briefly. Everything's still confusing. He looked around the room, noting two other figures watching from the periphery, a small white-haired girl and a handsome blonde boy. Who are all of you, really? And what do you want with me? Rias gestured gracefully, encompassing the room and its occupants. We are devils, members of the Gremory clan and the Student Council's Occult Research Club, which serves as our cover for monitoring supernatural activity in this territory. She indicated each person in turn. Akano Himahima, my queen and vice president. Kaneko Tuju, my rook. Yuto Kiba, my knight. And I am Rias Gremory, heir to the Gremory household and administrator of this territory. The terms, queen, rook, knight, triggered another fragment of knowledge from Issei's conversation with Didraig. Chess pieces, evil pieces, the system used to create devil servants. And what am I to you? He asked directly, watching her reaction carefully. Something flickered behind Rias's composed expression, calculation, perhaps, a reconsideration of approach. Currently, you're a human wit. An exceptionally powerful sacred gear who was attacked in my territory. That makes you my responsibility. And moving forward, her smile turned diplomatic. That depends on you. The fallen angels won't stop with one attempt. They've identified you as a threat and will return in greater numbers. As a human, even with the boosted gear, you have limited options for survival. Here it comes, Issei thought, recognizing the setup for the offer Didraig had warned about. I could offer you protection, Rias continued smoothly. By reincarnating you as a devil in my service, you would gain enhanced physical abilities, magical potential, practical immortality, significant advantages for someone in your position. In exchange for what? Issei asked, though he already knew the answer. Loyalty, service as a member of my peerage. Her smile warmed, becoming almost affectionate. I treat my servants well, Issei. The Gremory are known for valuing their household members as family. The oath, was expertly framed. Protection and power in exchange for service to a beautiful, apparently benevolent master. Under normal circumstances, with no context beyond the immediate threat and miraculous rescue, Issei might have accepted without hesitation. But Didraig's warnings echoed in his mind, along with the vision of the Crimson Throne. Something about Rias's offer felt wrong, not malicious necessarily, but fundamentally misaligned with truths he was only beginning to glimpse. I appreciate the rescue, he said carefully, and the healing. But I need time to process everything before making decisions about my future. Surprise again flickered across Rias's face, quickly masked. Few humans, he suspected, declined her generous offers. Time may be a luxury you don't have, she pointed out. The fallen angels could return tonight. I understand the risk, Issei acknowledged. But this is too important to rush. Rias studied him with renewed interest, as though his refusal revealed something significant. After a moment's consideration, she nodded. Very well. We'll establish temporary protective wards around your home, a courtesy extended to a potential ally. But understand that such protection has limits against determined enemies. Thank you, Issei said, genuinely grateful despite his suspicions. And thank you for saving my life, regardless of what comes next. The formality of his gratitude seemed to amuse her. You're welcome, Issei Hyodo. Rest tonight, and consider my offer carefully. She stood, signaling the end of their conversation. Akano will take you me and establish the protective boundaries. As the vice president stepped forward with a polite bow, Issei noticed something odd, a subtle shift in the atmosphere as a new presence entered the room. The other devils tensed almost imperceptibly, their attention focusing on a corner where shadows seemed to deepen and coalesce. From these shadows stepped a woman of extraordinary beauty and palpable authority. Tall and statuesque, with flowing silver hair and eyes like Arctic ice, she wore what appeared to be a French-made uniform that somehow conveyed formal elegance rather than fetishistic appeal. Her expression remained perfectly composed, yet Issei sensed immense power carefully contained beneath that calm exterior. Lady Gremory, the newcomer said, her voice cool and formal. I apologize for the intrusion. Rias's posture stiffened slightly. Grayfia, I wasn't expecting you, evidently. The silver-haired woman, Grayfia, surveyed the room with analytical precision before her gaze settled on Issei. For an instant, something flashed behind her icy composure, recognition, shock, or perhaps both, before her mask of professional detachment returned. I came regarding the matter we discussed previously. Grayfia continued, though her eyes remained fixed on Issei with unsettling intensity. But I see you have more immediate concerns. This is Issei Hyodo, Rias explained, gesturing toward him. He was attacked by a fallen angel within our territory. We intervened. I see. Grayfia approached slowly, each movement precisely controlled. As she drew nearer, Issei felt a street range resonance, as though something in his blood recognized something in hers. A human with a sacred gear, I presume. The boosted gear, Rias confirmed. Recently awakened. Grayfia stopped before Issei, studying him with an intensity that made him acutely uncomfortable. Not hostile, precisely, but deeply unsettling, like being examined under a microscope by a scientist who'd discovered an impossible specimen. May I? She asked, extending a gloved hand toward him. Before Rias could object or Issei could respond, Grayfia placed her palm lightly against his chest, directly over his heart. The contact sent a jolt through his system, not painful but intensely disorienting, as though some part of him that had been sleeping suddenly snapped awake. Grayfia's eyes widened fractionally, the only visible crack in her perfect composure. She withdrew her hand quickly, though the resonance lingered between them like an unspoken recognition. Interesting, she said, the single word laden with implications Issei couldn't begin to interpret. Turning to Rias, she continued with renewed formality. This matter requires further discussion. In private. Rias frowned, clearly displeased by the interruption and Grayfia's inexplicable interest in Issei. As I said, we have more immediate concerns. I insist, Grayfia interrupted, her tone making clear this was not a request but a directive. From someone with the authority to issue it. After a moment of tense silence, Rias relented. Very well. To Akeno, she added, please see Issei home safely and establish the protective boundaries as discussed. Akeno bowed gracefully. Of course, President. As Akeno helped Issei to his feet, he couldn't shake the sensation that something significant had just occurred, something beyond his current understanding but integral to his emerging identity. Grayfia watched him with that same unsettling intensity, her expression revealing nothing while her eyes suggested she'd glimpsed something momentous. We will speak again soon. Issei Hyodo, she said as he passed, the formal statement carrying the weight of prophecy rather than mere social courtesy. Issei nodded, unable to formulate a response that wouldn't sound inadequate. As Akeno led him from the room, he felt the weight of Grayfia's gaze following him, not threatening but profoundly significant, as though she'd recognized something in him that even he had yet to fully comprehend. Something connected to Crimson Dreams and Waiting Thrones. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Blood and Birthright. Grayfia Lucifuge stood motionless before the ancient text, silver hair cascading over her shoulders as she leaned forward to examine the faded manuscript. The archive chamber deep beneath the Gremory estate maintained perfect preservatio. End conditions for documents too valuable, or dangerous, to be stored in more accessible locations. Illuminated only by spelled candles that cast no heat or smoke, the chamber had remained undisturbed for decades until her urgent request for access. The page before her displayed a magic circle so complex its patterns seemed to shift beneath her gaze. Concentric rings of archaic devil script surround the central emblem, a stylized dragon coiled around a crown of flames. Along the margins, annotations in a nearly extinct dialect detailed the circle's purpose and origin. It's identical, she whispered, comparing the ancient diagram to the sketch she'd made hours earlier. The magic circle that had briefly flared around Issei Hyodo when her hand touched his chest, a circle not seen in the underworld for over a millennium. The royal sigil of the original Satan dynasty. Grayfia's perfectly composed exterior betrayed nothing of her inner turmoil as the implications crystallized. If her suspicions proved correct, everything, the carefully negotiated peace between devil factions, the power balance maintained by the current four great Satans, the very structure of underworld society, stood on the precipice of fundamental change. Lady Grayfia, a servant's respectful voice interrupted her contemplation. Lord Searzex requests your presence in his study immediately. She closed the ancient text with careful precision. Inform him I'll arrive shortly. As the servant departed, Grayfia allowed herself a rare unguarded moment, closing her eyes as memories from centuries past surfaced with painful clarity. She had been young then, by devil standards, when the whispered rumors first circulated through the remnants of the old Satan faction. The infant heir had survived the purge. Hida, and away beyond the reach of those who had overthrown the original royal line. Most dismissed these rumors as desperate fantasy from loyalists unable to accept defeat. Even those who believed rarely spoke of it openly, understanding that such talk invited dangerous attention. For her part, Grayfia had considered it irrelevant, ancient history superseded by current realities, including her own complicated relationship with Rias Gremory, the devil who now held the title of Lucifer. But now, all this time, she murmured, her fingers tracing the royal sigil one final time before she closed the book. You were hidden in plain sight. With practiced efficiency, she composed herself, reassembling the perfect mask of professional detachment that had become her signature. The matters before her required absolute discretion and careful strategy. Too many lives, perhaps the future of Devil Society itself, depended on her next actions. Especially since she alone knew what she had felt when her hand touched Issei Hyodo's chest, not just the royal sigil manifesting, but the unmistakable resonance of blood calling to blood. The Lucifuge clan had served as right hands to the throne since the dawn of Devil civilization. That connection transcended political allegiances or personal choices. It existed at the cellular level, an ancient magic woven into their very essence. And after 1,000 years of dormancy, that connection had awakened once again. Issei Hyodo stared at the ceiling of his bedroom, sleep impossible despite exhaustion that penetrated to his bones. 24 hours earlier, his most pressing concerns had involved entrance exams and his hopeless quest to glimpse the girl's changing room. Now he lay surrounded by magical barriers erected by a beautiful devil woman who served a crimson-haired heiress, recovering from wounds inflicted by a fallen angel, with the spirit of an ancient dragon residing somewhere in his left arm. And apparently, if his Ms. and Ddrake's cryptic statements held any truth, he might not even be human. This is insane, he muttered, pressing the heels of his hands against his eyes. Completely insane. Reality often appears insane when paradigms shift. Ddrake's voice rumbled through his consciousness. You merely transition from one understanding to another. The world itself remains unchanged. Issei lowered his hands, staring accusingly at his left arm where the sacred gear had manifested. Easy for you to say. You're not having an existential crisis. I have existed in many forms across millennia, the doctor Agon replied with what might have been amusement. My existence is perpetually in crisis by human standards. Despite everything, Issei found himself smiling at the dragon's dry humor. Fair point. He sat up, wincing slightly as his partially healed wound protested the movement. Can we talk? Actually talk. I have questions. About 1,000,000 of them. Proceed. What am I, really? A weighted silence followed, as though the dragon were carefully considering its response. Complicated. That's not helpful. Accuracy rarely is. The dragon's presence seemed to strengthen, a warm current flowing through Issei's left arm. I can share what I know, but understand that even my knowledge has limitations. I was sealed within the boosted gear long before your birth, and much of your specific circumstance remains unclear even to me. Issei nodded, though the gesture seemed pointless when communicating with an entity inside his body. Tell me what you do know. You were born of the original Satan bloodline, the royal dynasty that ruled the underworld from its founding until the Civil War approximately 1,000 years ago. The statement, delivered with matter-of-fact certainty, hit Issei like a physical blow. Despite the dreams, despite Ddrake's earlier hints, having his non-humanity confirmed so directly felt momentous, terrifying and exhilarating simultaneously. I'm a devil, he whispered, testing the words. An actual devil, not merely a devil, a royal devil. The distinction is significant. Issei stood, pacing his small bedroom as he processed this revelation. But I've lived as a human my whole life. I have human parents, human memories, human everything. Your memories are genuine, your parents loving but unrelated to you biologically. You were hidden among humans as an infant. Your powers sealed and your appearance altered to conceal your nature. The emergence of those sealed abilities corresponds with the weakening of those ancient protections. 1,000 implications cascaded through Issei's mind. Questions about his birth parents, about why he needed protection, about the circumstances that had placed him in a human family. The law of deception required for such an arrangement seemed impossible. Who did this? Who hid me? That information was not shared with me. My connection to you began only when the boosted gear awakened within you. Issei paused by his window, looking out at the ordinary suburban neighborhood that suddenly seemed like an elaborate stage set, a constructed reality designed to contain him until what? Why now? He asked. Why are these seals or protections or whatever breaking now? Magical seals require maintenance or naturally degrade over time. Those placed upon you were exceptionally powerful but not eternal. Your physical maturation likely accelerated their deterioration, as your natural powers grew and pressed against the constraints. And the boosted gear, how does that fit in? You said earlier it was meant as a mask or distraction. The dragon's presence shifted, suggesting something like a nod. The sacred gear system was created by the biblical god. The boosted gear contains my spirit and grants its wielder the ability to double their power repeatedly. Normally, it manifests in humans with unusual potential or destiny. Your case is unique. The sacred gear appears to have been deliberately introduced to your infant form, integrated with the sealing magic. My hypothesis is that this served two purposes: to provide explanation for any power that might leak through the seals, and to disguise your true nature beneath a recognized supernatural signature. Issei tried to make sense of these revelations. So someone hid me as a baby, sealed my devil powers, gave me a sacred gear as camouflage, and placed me with human parents. All to protect me from, what? Who would want to harm a devil baby? Those WHO overthrew your family and seized control of the underworld, Didraig answered simply. The current devil leadership consists primarily of usurpers and their descendants. Your existence represents a legitimate claim to authority they have spent a millennium consolidating. The weight of this statement settled over Issei like a physical burden. Not just a devil, but a devil with a contested birthright. A political liability to powerful entities he'd never met. That's why the fallen angel tried to kill me. Because of politics from 1,000 years ago. Unlikely. The fallen likely sensed unusual power and investigated on general principle. But now that your energy signature has been identified, more deliberate attention will follow. Issei sank onto the edge of his bed, overwhelmed. So Rias Gremory, she's part of the current leadership. Her family benefits from my family's overthrow. The Gremory clan was among those WHO opposed the original Satan regime, yes. Though historical nuance suggests their motivation was reform rather than mere power acquisition. The original Satan dynasty had grown. Problematic in its later generations. Problematic how? Tyrannical, decadent, increasingly disconnected from the needs of their subjects. The civil war was not without justification, though its resolution, the complete eradication of the royal bloodline, exceeded necessary correction. Issei absorbed this with surprising calmness. Perhaps too overwhelmed for further emotional response. And that silver-haired woman who touched me. Grayfia, she recognized something about me. Didraig's presence shifted again, suggesting interest. The Lucifuge clan served as the right hand of the throne for millennia. They possess a magical connection to the royal bloodline, a bond that transcends ordinary allegiance. If she is indeed Lucifuge, her recognition of your nature would be instinctual and unavoidable. So she knows what I am. Issei stared at his hands, still appearing perfectly human despite everything he'd learned. What does that mean for me? That, Didraig rumbled, depends entirely on where her loyalties now lie. Further conversation was interrupted by a soft chime, not physical but magical, resonating through the room. Issei felt the protective barrier Akeno had established ripple like disturbed water, responding to something outside. We have visitors, Didraig announced unnecessarily. Devils. Powerful ones. Issei moved to the window, peering out cautiously. In the street below, partially concealed by shadows, stood two figures. One he recognized immediately, Rias Gremory, her crimson hair unmistakable even in darkness. The other, as that, Grayfia, he whispered, noting the silver hair gleaming under streetlights. Indeed, and they are not alone. As if responding to Didraig's observation, a third figure materialized from a transportation circle nearby, a tall man with shoulder-length crimson hair several shades darker than Rias's. Even from a distance, Issei sensed immense power radiating from him. Controlled with casual mastery that suggested centuries of experience. Sears X Lucifer, Didraig identified, respect evident in his tone. formerly Rias Gremory, current whole, Dur of the Lucifer title and arguably the most powerful devil in existence. Rias's brother, Issei recalled hearing something about her having an important sibling in the underworld. And your potential executioner, should he discover your true nature. The blunt assessment sent ice through Issei's veins. What should I do? Nothing, for the moment. They cannot penetrate these barriers without alerting you, and me. Observation serves us better than confrontation until your powers develop further. Below, the three devils appeared to be engaged in intense conversation. Though Issei couldn't hear their words, their body language suggested disagreement, Rias gesturing emphatically while Grayfia maintained rigid formality and Rias observed with calculating attention. After several minutes, all three looked up simultaneously, directly at Issei's window. He jerked back reflexively, heart pounding. They saw me. They sensed us, Ddraig corrected. Your power responds to your emotions. Fear makes concealment difficult. Closing square bracket. The chime sounded again, more insistent this time. They want to come in, Issei realized. Decision time, partner. Deny them entry and confirm their suspicions that something unusual hides here. Or grant access and attempt to maintain your human facade while the most powerful devil in existence stands before you. Neither option appealed, but Issei recognized the strategic advantage of appearing cooperative. How do I let them in? Place your hand against the window and will the barrier to admit them. Your intent will temporarily modify the permission parameters. Issei did as instructed, feeling the barrier flex beneath his palm like elastic stretched to its limit before relaxing into a new configuration. Below, the three devils exchanged glances before Rias nodded once and all three vanished simultaneously. A soft knock at his bedroom door made Issei jump despite expecting their arrival. Come in, he called, voice steadier than he felt. The door opened to reveal Rias. Elegant as always despite the late hour. Good evening, Issei, she greeted, as though visiting a classmate's bedroom near midnight were perfectly normal. I apologize for the intrusion. But certain developments require immediate discussion. She entered fully, revealing Grayfia and Rias behind her. In person, the current Lucifer appeared both more and less imposing than Issei had expected. Dressed casually in what appeared to be expensive but understated modern clothing, yet radiating an aura of contained power that made the room feel smaller by his mere presence. Issei Hyodo, Rias said, his voice pleasant yet carrying subtle authority. I've heard much about you in the past few hours. The human boy with the boosted gear who declined my sister's generous offer. His smile seemed genuine, though his eyes remained evaluative. Most unusual. Grayfia remained by the door, her expression unreadable as she observed the interaction. Only slight tension in her posture betrayed any emotion, watchfulness perhaps, or concern. I felt it was a big decision to rush into, Issei replied carefully, conscious of Ddraig's warnings about revealing his nature. Eternal service deserves at least overnight consideration, doesn't it? Rias laughed, the sound surprisingly warm. Well said. Caution before commitment shows wisdom beyond your years. He glanced around the modest bedroom with apparent interest. May I? He asked, gesturing toward Issei's desk chair. Of course, Issei nodded, sitting on the edge of his bed while Rias perched beside him. Close enough that her subtle perfume registered clearly. Rias settled into the chair with casual grace. I'll be direct, Issei Hyodo. The awakening of a Longinus class sacred Jar in my sister's territory represents a significant development, one with potential implications for the wider supernatural world. I didn't ask for it, Issei pointed out, genuine frustration lending credibility to his response. Until yesterday, I was just a normal student. Fate rarely consults us before altering our destinies, Rias observed philosophically. Nevertheless, your situation presents both opportunity and danger. The fallen angels have already demonstrated their interest. Others will follow. What others? Various factions monitor the emergence of powerful sacred gears, Rias explained. Angels, other devil houses, yokai, potentially even gods from various pantheons. Rias nodded. Which brings us to our purpose here tonight. While I respect your desire to consider your options, circumstances may not allow such luxury. Intelligence suggests the fallen are mobilizing a more significant force to eliminate you before your power fully awakens. Issei Absor bed this with external calmness that belied his internal turmoil. According to Diedrage, the man sitting casually in his desk chair represented both his greatest immediate threat and, paradoxically, potential protection against other dangers. What are you suggesting? He asked carefully. Temporary sanctuary, Sirzex replied. Not permanent allegiance, but protective custody within the Gremory. A state until we better understand the situation. Rias looked surprised by this offer, suggesting it hadn't been discussed previously. Brother, the boy represents a significant potential asset, Rias, Sirzex interrupted gently. One perhaps too valuable to remain unaffiliated in human territory during this vulnerable phase of awakening. The phrasing, asset, unaffiliated, vulnerable, raised immediate alarms in Issei's mind. This wasn't protection being offered but acquisition, however diplomatically framed. Careful, partner, Diedrage cautioned unnecessarily. He seeks to control what he does not yet understand. Before Issei could formulate a response, Grayfia spoke for the first time since entering the room. If I may, Lord Sirzex. Her formal address contained a subtle reminder of their respective positions. Perhaps we should first confirm what we're dealing with before extracting the boy from his home environment. The interaction between human physiology and dragon energy remains poorly understood. Removing him prematurely could destabilize the sacred gear's integration. Her intervention surprised everyone, Sirzex included. The current Lucifer turned to stew. His silver-haired attendant with narrowed eyes. You suggest leaving him vulnerable to fallen attack. I suggest, Grayfia replied with perfect composure, that we strengthen the existing barrier. And maintain observation while allowing natural development to proceed. Forced acceleration has proven catastrophic in previous sacred gear wielders. The clinical reasoning sounded plausible even to Issei. Though he suspected her true motivation lay elsewhere. Was she protecting him, or merely ensuring that whatever she'd sensed about his true nature had time to manifest more fully before others discovered it? Sirzex considered the suggestion, tapping long fingers against his knee. A compromise, then. Enhanced protection here, with daily monitoring and training sessions to help him control his emerging abilities. He turned back to Issei. Would that arrangement be acceptable to you? The offer seemed reasonable on its surface, protection without immediate commitment, yet Issei sensed underlying calculation. Still, his options remained limited, and antagonizing the most powerful devil in existence served no strategic purpose. That sounds fair, he agreed cautiously. Though I'd like to understand more about what's happening to me. About the sacred gear and what it means. Of course, Sirzex smiled. Knowledge is critical to control. Rias will arrange appropriate instruction. He stood, the matter apparently settled to his satisfaction. We've imposed enough for one evening. Rest, Issei Hyodo. The coming days will demand much from you. As the current Lucifer moved toward the door, he paused beside Grayfia, murmuring something too low for Issei to hear. The silver-haired woman's expression remained impassive, though Issei thought he detected a slight stiffening in her posture before she nodded once in acknowledgement. Until tomorrow, then, Rias said, rising from the bed. She hesitated, then added more softly, try not to worry too much, Issei. We'll figure this out together. The unexpected gentleness in her tone seemed genuine, making Issei wonder how much of her interest stemmed from political calculation versus actual concern. The complexity of devil motivations presented a labyrinth he felt ill-equipped to navigate. As the three devils prepared to depart, Grayfia turned suddenly, fixing Issei with that same penetrating gaze he'd experienced in the club room. One moment, she said, reaching into a pocket dimension with practiced ease and withdrawing a small object. For protection, she explained, extending her hand to reveal what ared to be an antique silver pendant etched with intricate symbols. This contains additional defensive enchantments, she continued as Issei accepted the offering. Specifically calibrated to repel light-based attacks. Wear it at all times. The pendant felt unnaturally warm against his palm, its engraving seemingly shifting beneath his gaze much like the magic circle in his dreams. Something about it resonated with him on a level beyond conscious understanding. Thank you, he said, genuinely grateful despite his uncertainty about her motives. Grayfia nodded once, her expression revealing nothing. Yet as she turned away, her eyes met his one final time, conveying a message he couldn't quite decipher but instinctively recognized as significant. Then they were gone, vanishing through a transportation circle that momentarily illuminated his bedroom with crimson light before fading to ordinary darkness. Issei stood motionless, staring at the pendant in his palm and processing the layers of subtext and unspoken agendas beneath the seemingly straightforward conversation. Interesting, Diedrag commented after several moments of silence. The Lucifuge woman gave you something far more significant than she claimed. What do you mean? That pendant contains no ordinary protection spell. It bears the royal sigil hidden within seemingly random engravings, a message only one of your bloodline would recognize. Issei examined the pendant more closely, noting how certain patterns seemed to rearrange themselves under his focused attention, forming briefly into a familiar emblem. The same draconic crown that appeared in his dreams, before dispersing back into apparently decorative scrollwork. She knows, he whispered. She knows exactly what I am. Yes, and she has just made her first move in what promises to be a very dangerous game. The Gremory estate's private study maintained perfect soundproofing, allowing its occupants complete privacy for sensitive conversations. Rias Lucifuge stood before the ornate fireplace, seemingly contemplating the dancing flames while actually observing his companion's reflections in the polished marble mantelpiece. Your assessment, Grayfia? He asked without turning. The silver-haired woman stood at formal attention near the doorway, maintaining professional distance as always when they conducted official business. The sacred gear is genuine. The Red Dragon Emperor resides within the boy as reported. And her hesitation lasted barely a heartbeat, imperceptible to most, but significant from someone renowned for unwavering composure. There are anomalies in his energy signature, inconsistencies that warrant further investigation. Rias turned from the fireplace, studying her with the penetrating attention that had helped make him the most powerful devil of his generation. Anomalies such as his integration with the sacred gear appears unusually advanced for a recent awakening. The dragon responds to him with atypical cooperation, and his recovery rate from light damage exceeds standard parameters, even accounting for the boosted gear's healing properties. All true statements. Carafew LLY selected to reveal nothing of her most significant discovery. Grayfia maintained eye contact with practiced ease, her centuries of diplomatic service providing ample preparation for such delicate omissions. Curious, Rias acknowledged. And your recommendation? As stated previously, careful observation in his current environment while providing basic training and protection. Removing him prematurely could destabilize an already unusual situation. Rias, who had been silently observing the exchange from a nearby settee, finally spoke. I disagree. The boy represents a significant opportunity for my peerage. His potential would be better developed under direct supervision in Devil territory. Your interest in expanding your collection is noted, Rias, Rias replied with brotherly indulgence. However, Grayfia raises valid concerns about sacred gear stability. A few days of observation should clarify the situation without undue risk. Rias frowned, clearly dissatisfied with the delay but unwilling to challenge her brother's authority directly. And if the Fallen attack again, the enhanced barriers should repel standard incursions, Grayfia answered smoothly. For more coordinated attempts, I will personally monitor the situation and intervene if necessary. Both Gremory siblings turned to her with expressions of surprise. You, Rias questioned. This hardly seems to warrant your direct involvement, given your other responsibilities. Grayfia's expression remained perfectly neutral. The emergence of a Longinus-class sacred gear represents a significant development. As your chief administrator, ensuring proper handling of such matters falls within my purview. The explanation sounded reasonable enough that Rias merely nodded after a moment's consideration. Very well. Establish whatever monitoring systems you deem appropriate. But I expect regular reports on any developments. Of course, Lord Lucifer. With the matter settled, sirs. CHS turned his attention to administrative concerns requiring his attention elsewhere in the underworld. After his departure through a private transportation circle, Rias and Grayfia remained in momentary silence, each calculating their next moves with the care of experienced strategists. You've never shown such interest in sacred gear wielders before, Rias observed finally, her tone casual but her gaze sharp. What makes this one different? Grayfia allowed herself a small, measured smile. Professional curiosity. The boosted gear rarely manifests without significant purpose. And your pendant? That was unexpected generosity toward a human you've just met. Merely practical protection. Light-based attacks represent his greatest vulnerability at present. Rias studied her brother's queen with newfound suspicion. You're being evasive, Grayfia. That's unlike you. I'm being precise, as always. Grayfia moved toward the door with unhurried grace. Now if you'll excuse me, I neigh. Ed to establish those monitoring systems we discussed. As she departed, leaving Rias alone with her thoughts, Grayfia permitted herself a momentary deviation from perfect composure, a slight quickening of step that betrayed urgency normally foreign to her measured existence. The situation had evolved faster than anticipated, requiring adjustments to timelines established centuries ago. The heir had awakened, the dragon had manifested, the ancient protections were failing, and the Crimson Throne, empty for a millennium, would soon call its rightful occupant home. Morning arrived with cruel brightness, streaming through Issei's window and pulling him from fitful sleep filled with fragments of the Crimson World. He reached automatically for the pendant Grayfia had given him, confirming it remained secure around his neck before pushing himself upright. Good morning, partner, Deidraig greeted with what might have been amusement. Another day of existential crisis awaits. Your encouragement is overwhelming, Issei muttered, shuffling toward the bathroom. The normalcy of his morning routine, showering, brushing teeth, donning his uniform, felt increasingly like play acting, maintaining a human facade that grew more transparent by the hour. His parents greeted him with typical cheerfulness at breakfast, completely unaware that their home had been visited by supernatural entities or that their son was allegedly devil royalty. Their ordinary concerns and gentle affection struck Issei with painful poignancy. Whatever his biological origins, these people had raised him, loved him, shaped his understanding of family and belonging. Are you feeling all right, dear? His mother asked, noting his distraction. You're awfully quiet this morning. Issei manufactured a reassuring smile. Just thinking about school stuff. Nothing important. Well, don't overthink things, his father advised from behind his newspaper. Sometimes the simplest solution is best. The irony this advice applied to Issei's current circumstances almost made him laugh. Nothing about his situation permitted simple solutions. His walk to school felt surreal, the ordinary neighborhood transformed by his new awareness of the supernatural world existing alongside it. Were some neighbors secretly yokai? Did angels occasionally pass overhead, invisible to human perception? How many seemingly ordinary people carried sacred gears or other powers, living in ignorance of their true nature as he had until recently? You begin to see the world as it truly exists, Deidraig observed. Reality has many layers. Humans perceive only the most superficial. How many others like me are out there? Issei wondered aloud, careful to keep his voice low enough to avoid appearing insane to passing pedestrians. Other devil heirs are whatever hidden among humans. Unlikely any remain. Your situation appears unique, the result of extraordinary measures taken during extraordinary circumstances. Before Issei could inquire further, a familiar voice called his name. Turning, he found Rias approaching from a side street, her crimson hair immediately drawing attention from passing students who watched Ed with undisguised admiration as she joined him. Good morning, Issei, she greeted warmly. I thought I might walk with you today, if that's acceptable. The formality of her phrasing contrasted with the casual setting, reminding Issei of the vast cultural differences between them despite their similar apparent ages. Sure, he agreed, acutely aware of envious glares from male students' witness. Inkuo Academy's most beautiful third year choosing to accompany an unremarkable second year. They walked in silence for several moments before Rias spoke again, her voice lowered for privacy. How are you feeling after yesterday's events? Overwhelmed, Issei admitted honestly. 24 hours ago, devils and angels were just stories. Now I'm wearing a magical pendant and talking to a dragon that lives in my arm. Rias smiled sympathetically. The supernatural world can be disorienting at first. Most humans who encounter it have similar adjustment difficulties. Is that what happened with your other servants? Issei chose the word carefully, still uncomfortable with the concept of devil peerages and ownership. In some cases, Kiba and Kaneko came to me through different circumstances. Akeno was already aware of the supernatural world due to her heritage. Rias glanced at him curiously. You referred to them as servants rather than pieces. That's unusual terminology for someone new to Devil Society. Issei silently cursed his carelessness. The chess piece analogy seemed strange to me. They're people, not objects. The observation earned him a thoughtful look from Rias. Many devils wouldn't share that perspective. Servants are traditionally viewed as extensions of their master's power and status, particularly among older houses. That seems wrong, Issei stated simply. Having power over someone doesn't make them less of a person. A surprisingly progressive view for a human teenager, Rias noted, something like approval warming her voice. The Gremory have similar philosophies. Actually, we're known for treating our household members with unusual affection and consideration. They reached the school gates, where Rias paused before entering. I've arranged for you to be excused from afternoon classes. Meet me at the old school building at 2 o'clock for your first training session. Training for what exactly? Sacred gear control, primarily. Understanding and directing the boosted gear's abilities will be essential for your safety. She smiled encouragingly. Don't worry, we'll start with basics. As she turned to leave, Issei called after her. Rias, thank you for helping me. You didn't have to get involved. She looked back, expression softening momentarily. Perhaps not, but I find myself increasingly glad that I did. With that enigmatic statement, she continued toward the main building, leaving Issei to ponder the complex motivations behind her interest in him. She remains unaware of your true nature, Didraig observed. Her interest stems from the boosted gear and perhaps personal curiosity. But make no mistake, she still desires you as part of her collection. Collection sounds creepy, Issei muttered, heading toward his classroom. And she seems genuinely nice. Devils can be genuinely nice while pursuing their ambitions. The two are not mutually exclusive. This complexity of character, the ability to harbor genuine affection while maintaining strategic objectives, seemed more devilish than any supernatural power. Issei wondered if such duality existed within himself as well. Part O. F. His increasingly apparent non-human heritage. The morning passed in a blur of ordinary classes rendered surreal by his extraordinary circumstances. Issei found himself observing his classmates with new awareness, wondering how they would react if they knew supernatural beings walked among them, if they knew that he himself might be one such being. During lunch break, he retreated to the relative solitude of the school roof. Needing space to process his thoughts without Matsuda and Motohama's usual antics. To his surprise, he found the area already occupied by the small white-haired girl he recognized from the occult research club, Kaneko Tuju. She acknowledged his presence with the barest nod, continuing to eat from a bento box containing a surprisingly large meal for someone her size. After a moment's hesitation, Issei approached and sat several feet away, maintaining respectful distance. Mind if I join you? He asked belatedly, already seated. Free country, she replied flatly, not looking up from her food. They sat in surprisingly comfortable silence for several minutes before Kaneko spoke again. You smell different today. The odd observation caught Issei off guard. Excuse me, your scent, it's changing. She finally looked at him directly, her expression unreadable. Less human, more something else. Alarm rippled through Issei at this casual identification of his changing nature. What do you mean? Kaneko shrugged, returning to her food. Not my business. Just noticed. Can others tell? The question escaped before he could consider its implications. She considered this while chewing thoughtfully. Devils with enhanced senses might. Most wouldn't notice yet. After swallowing, she added, getting stronger though. Won't stay hidden long. He matter-of-fact assessment hit harder than dramatic warnings would have. Kaneko had no apparent agenda, just honest observation from someone with heightened senses. Thanks for telling me, Issei said finally. Another shrug. President likes you. Means we watch out for you. She closed her empty bento box with careful precision. Training later. Don't be late. With that cryptic advice, she gathered her things and departed, leaving Issei alone with the troubling knowledge that his non-human nature was becoming physically detectable. The timeline for maintaining his Ordinary human with sack. Red gear. Cover appeared to be shrinking rapidly. Your awakening accelerates, Diedrag confirmed. The pendant the Lucifuge woman gave you likely contributes to this progression. The pendant. Issei touched the silver object beneath his uniform. I thought it was for protection. It serves multiple purposes. The protection is genuine, but it also appears to be gradually neutralizing whatever remains of the original sealing magic. A clever approach, helping you awaken while appearing to simply offer defense. This revelation added another layer to Grayfia's already complex motivations. She deliberately accelerating his transformation. To what end? The warning bell signaling the end of lunch interrupted these troubling thoughts. Issei returned to class, forcing himself to focus on ordinary subjects that seemed increasingly irrelevant to his rapidly changing reality. What value did algebra hold when one might be devil royalty? What significance did history tests carry when one's own history appeared to be an elaborate fabrication? Yet he persisted in maintaining normalcy, understanding instinctively that such camouflage remained his best protection until he better understood the forces aligning around him. At precisely 2 o'clock, Issei arrived at the old school building, climbing the worn staircase to the Occult Research Club's headquarters. He knocked once on the ornate door, which swung open apparently of its own accord to reveal the Victorian-inspired room he remembered from the previous day. Rias sat behind an antique desk, reviewing documents with practiced efficiency. She looked up at his entrance, setting aside her work with a welcoming smile. Right on time. Excellent. Akano emerged from a side room carrying a silver tea service, which she set on the coffee table with graceful precision. Hello again, Issei-kun, she greeted, her voice carrying a hint of playfulness that hadn't been present during their previous encounter. Tea before training. It's a special blend that helps stabilize energy flow. Thank you. Issei accepted the offered cup, noting subtle magical energy infused within the aromatic liquid. The room's other occupants, Kiba and Kaneko, acknowledged him with varying degrees of warmth before returning to their own activities. Before we begin practical training, Rias began, moving to join him on one of the couches. Establish a baseline understanding of sacred gears generally and the boosted gear specifically. Has your dragon companion explained its capabilities? The phrasing, your dragon companion, Rias understood more about sacred gears than she'd previously indicated. Somewhat, Issei hedged. He mentioned doubling power and something about being one of 2 heavenly dragons. Rias nodded. The boosted gear is classified as a Longinus, one of 13 sacred gears theoretically capable of slaying gods when fully mastered. Specifically, it contains the spirit of Diedrag, the Red Dragon Emperor, who fought the White Dragon Emperor Albion in a battle so destructive that multiple pantheons intervened to seal them within sacred gears. She paused, allowing this information to register before continuing. The boosted gear's primary ability is indeed power doubling. Every 10 seconds, you can double your existing power level, a compounding effect that theoretically has no upper limit. Beyond your body's ability to contain the energy. That sounds excessive, Issei observed, slightly overwhelmed by the implications. Hence its Longinus classification, Rias confirmed. However, untrained users typically reach their limits after 3 or 4 boosts. Exceeding that threshold without proper preparation can cause severe physical damage or even death. Akano joined the conversation, her expression more serious than before. Sacred gears respond to their wielder's emotional state and physical condition. Strong emotions, particularly determination, protective instincts, or ideous anger, can trigger evolution and unlock new abilities. The boosted gear specifically, Rias continued, has historically demonstrated evolution beyond mere power doubling. Previous wielders have manifested armor, enhanced physical abilities, transferred accumulated power to other people or objects, and even summoned aspects of Diedrag's original form. Issei absorbed this information with growing awareness of just how significant his power actually was. Even without his apparently royal devil heritage, the boosted gear alone made him a high-value target in the supernatural world. So how do I control it? He asked practically. So far, it's only appeared when I was in immediate danger. That's where our training begins, Rias replied, standing and gesturing for him to follow. Let's move to a more appropriate space. She led the group through a concealed door behind one of the bookshelves, revealing a staircase descending beneath the old-school building. The passage opened into a vast underground chamber that appeared impossibly large given the building's external dimensions, clearly expanded through magical means. The space resembled a combination of traditional dojo and magical workshop, with training areas marked on the stone floor, weapons racks along the walls, and complex magical circles permanently inscribed in strategic locations. Currently active, barrier spells shimmered faintly around the perimeter, containing whatever energies might be released during practice. Impressive, Issei commented, genuinely awed by the hidden facility. Necessary precaution for supernatural training on human-inhabited grounds, Rias explained. Now, let's begin with basic manifestation. Stand in the central circle, please. Issei complied, positioning himself within a chalk-marked area approximately 10 feet in diameter. The other club members arranged themselves at a safe distance, observing with varying degrees of interest. Sacred gears respond to will and visualization. Rias instructed. Close your eyes and picture the boosted gear as clearly as possible. Remember how it felt when it appeared previously, the weight on your arm, the energy flowing through it. The connection to D-Drake. Issei closed his eyes, concentrating on those sensations, the transformation of his left arm, the surge of power, the emerald jewel embedded in the red gauntlet. He reached mentally toward the presence he now recognized as D-Drake, seeking that connection. Focus on the feeling of need, D-Drake suggested. Sacred gears emerge in response to necessity. Create that necessity within your mind. Following this guidance, Issei imagined himself facing danger, not the specific threat of Rainer, but a generalized need for strength and protection. He visualized the gauntlet forming around his arm, becoming an extension of his will rather than merely a defensive reaction. A gasp from one of the observers told him something was happening before he fell. It himself. Warmth spreading through his left arm, followed by the now familiar sensation of transformation. Opening his eyes, he found the boosted gear fully manifested, its emerald jewel glowing with internal light. Excellent, Rias exclaimed, appearing genuinely pleased. First attempts usually require more effort or external stimulus. Your compatibility with the sacred gear must be exceptional. Or perhaps other factors influence our connection, D-Drake commented privately, reminding Issei of their unique circumstances. Now for basic functionality, Rias continued. The power doubling ability activates on command, though it requires a 10-second cooldown between uses. Try activating it now. Focus your will on amplifying your strength and direct that intention into the gear. Issei concentrated as instructed, focusing on the concept of increased power flowing through the emerald jewel and into his body. After a moment, the gem flashed brightly. Boost, D-Drake's voice announced, audible to everyone present rather than just internally to Issei. The effect was immediate and dramatic, energy surging through Issei's system, enhancing his physical strength, speed, and magical potential simultaneously. The sensation reminded him of adrenaline but more controlled and directed, as though every cell in his body suddenly operated at double efficiency. How does it feel? Akeno asked, watching with analytical interest. Amazing, Issei admitted, flexing his enhanced muscles experimentally. Like I could lift a car or run a marathon without breaking a sweat. That's just one boost, Hiba noted from his position against the wall. Impressive for a first attempt, but only a fraction of the gear's potential. Let's try another after the cooldown period, Rias suggested. But be aware of your physical limitations. Even with accelerated healing, pushing too far too quickly can cause damage. Issei nodded, monitoring the strange internal clock that seemed to accompany the sacred gear's functions. When exactly 10 seconds had elapsed, he focused again on amplification. Boost, D-Drake announced once more, and the energy within Issei doubled again, not merely adding the same amount as before, but truly doubling his already enhanced capabilities. This time the power surge felt more intense, bordering on uncomfortable as his partially human body struggled to contain energies it wasn't designed to channel. Yet something else happened simultaneously, something unexpected that drew surprised exclamations from the watching devils. Crimson energy flickered across Issei's skin like electrical discharge, forming momentary patterns reminiscent of the royal sigil he'd seen in his dreams and on Grayfia's pendant. The manifestation lasted only seconds before subsiding. But its appearance clearly shocked the observers. What was that? Rias demanded, moving closer with newfound intensity. That energy signature wasn't draconic. Issei feigned confusion. Thog. Internally he recognized exactly what had happened. His awakening devil power responding to the sacred gear's enhancement, breaking through remaining seals as Ddraig had warned might occur. I don't know, he answered truthfully enough. It felt different from the boosted gear's energy. Almost like something inside me was responding to the power increase. Rias studied him with narrowed eyes. Earlier pleased expression replaced by calculating assessment. Akeno, what would you call that energy pattern? The vice president hesitated before responding. It appeared similar to devil energy, but with unusual resonance patterns I haven't encountered before. She chose her words carefully, clearly recognizing the political implications of her observation. Perhaps interaction between hum and physiology and dragon energy creates unexpected manifestations. The explanation sounded plausible enough that Rias's suspicion visibly eased, though not entirely. Perhaps we should proceed cautiously nonetheless. To Issei, she added, let's avoid further boosts today until we better understand this interaction. The training continued with more basic exercises, manifesting and dismissing the sacred gear at will. Maintaining it for extended periods, directing its enhanced capabilities toward specific tasks. Throughout these activities, Issei remained acutely aware of Rias watching him with renewed interest, cataloging each unusual reaction or unexpected ability. After nearly 2 hours of practice, Rias called a halt to the session. You've shown remarkable aptitude for a new wielder, she observed as Issei dismissed the boosted gear with conscious effort. Though these energy anomalies bear further investigation. Is it dangerous? Issei asked, allowing concern to color his voice. Not necessarily, Rias replied diplomatically, but unusual manifestations often indicate potential complications. We'll monitor closely during future sessions. As they returned to the main club room, Issei noticed Kaneko studying him with particular intensity, her nose occasionally twitching as though confirming something through scent. Her earlier observation about his changing smell clearly remained relevant, perhaps even more so after the training session had accelerated his awakening. Same time tomorrow, Rias asked as she gathered research materials from her desk. Actually, Akeno interjected smoothly. I believe Grayfia-sama mentioned she would be handling tomorrow's session personally. Something about specialized barrier techniques relevant to sacred gear containment. This information clearly surprised Rias, who frowned slightly before mastering her expression. I see. I wasn't informed of this arrangement. The message arrived during today's training, Akeno explained with perfect composure. Though Issei suspected this was an artful fabrication, given her expertise with complex containment magic, it seemed a reasonable specialization. Rias appeared entirely displeased before nodding acceptance. Very well, Issei, you'll meet Grayfia here tomorrow at the same time. She has unique insights that may prove beneficial. The careful phrasing stead complex politics at play, Grayfia asserting direct involvement while Rias maintained the appearance of authority over the situation. Issei merely nodded agreement, recognizing another opportunity to learn more about his increasingly complicated circumstances. As the training session concluded and the club members dispersed to their various after-school activities, Akeno approached Issei privately. A word of advice, she offered. Her usual playfulness replaced by serious concern. Be careful what you reveal to whom. Not everyone involved in your situation has the same objectives or allegiances. The warning, delivered without specific accusations or directions, suggested Akeno herself recognized deeper currents beneath the surface interactions. Whether she suspected his true nature remained unclear, but her caution indicated awareness that something beyond a simple sacred gear awakening was occurring. I'll keep that in mind, Issei promised, genuinely appreciating the consideration regardless of her motives. As he departed the old school building, Issei found himself mentally cataloging the various factions seemingly forming around him, Rias and her peerage viewing him primarily as a potential powerful servant. Sears seeing him as a strategic asset to be controlled, Grayfia apparently recognizing his royal bloodline and taking measured steps to assist his awakening. And the fallen angels actively seeking his elimination. Each group operated from limited information and specific agendas, creating a complex web of interactions that Issei himself barely comprehended despite being its central focus. The only entity with seemingly complete understanding of his situation remained Didraig, whose own motivations and limitations required careful consideration. "You begin to think like a royal," the dragon observed as Issei made his way home. "Assessing factions, weighing allegiances, identifying leverage points. These instincts awaken with your blood. Is that a good thing?" Issei wondered aloud, keeping his voice low. "Thinking like a devil king depends entirely on what kind of king you choose to become." The response carried weight beyond its simple phrasing, a reminder that awakening to his heritage didn't dictate his character or choices. Whatever blood flowed in his veins, whatever throne awaited in the Crimson World, his actions remained his own responsibility. The philosophical contemplation ended abruptly as Issei rounded a corner and found his path blocked by three figures radiating unmistakable hostility. Unlike Rainer's human disguise during their first encounter, these individuals made no attempt to conceal their supernatural nature. Black feathered wings extended openly from their backs as they stood in formation across the otherwise deserted street. Red Dragon Emperor, the central figure addressed him, a middle-aged man in what appeared to be clerical attire. "Your presence has been deemed destabilizing to the current balance. We are here to address this imbalance." Fallen angels, Didraig identified unnecessarily. "More powerful than the one you faced previously. This is no random encounter but a coordinated elimination attempt." Issei assessed his options with surprising clarity, fear somehow transformed into tactical awareness. Running seemed pointless against winged pursuers. Fighting three experienced opponents with his novice control of the boosted gear presented poor odds. Calling for help might work, but would any response arrive in time? "I've done nothing to threaten any balance," he responded, playing for time while surreptitiously touching Grayfia's pendant beneath his shirt. If it truly offered protection against light-based attacks, he would need that advantage immediately. "Intent is irrelevant," the spokesman replied dispassionately. "Your mere existence represents unacceptable risk. The anomalous energy signature you've begun emitting compounds this assessment." He gestured to his companions. "Make it quick but thorough. No recoverable remains." As the fallen angels formed light spears with practiced ease, Issei felt the pendant against his chest grow suddenly warm, pulsing with energy that resonated through his system. Simultaneously, the natural mental barrier separating his conscious mind from his instinctual responses thinned dramatically. Knowledge flowed into his awareness, not Didraig's guidance but something older, something that felt like ancestral memory awakening from long dormancy. Without conscious decision, his hands moved in precise gestures, fingers racing patterns in the air that left faint crimson trails. "What is he?" one of the fallen began, breaking off in shock as a magic circle materialized before Issei, not the standard devil transportation circle he'd seen Rias use, but something more elaborate and ancient, its patterns shifting and flowing like living crimson flame. The central fallen angel's eyes widened in shocked recognition. "That's impossible." That sigil was lost with the... He never completed the sentence as the circle erupted with devastating force, releasing a concentrated blast of crimson energy that struck all three attackers simultaneously. Unlike typical devil magic that manifested as destructive power, this energy seemed to specifically target the fallen angel's light-based abilities, neutralizing their spears and temporarily disrupting their connection to their power source. The effect wasn't lethal but profoundly disabling, dropping all three to their knees as their wings drooped uselessly behind them. Air expressions registered not just pain but fundamental confusion. They had prepared for a sacred gear wielder, not whatever Issei had just demonstrated. "Impressive," Didraig commented with genuine appreciation. "Royal devil magic specifically attuned to counter fallen angel abilities. Your blood remembers what your mind does not yet know." Issei stared at his hands in shock, the crimson traces already fading from his fingers. He hadn't consciously called upon any magic, hadn't even known he possessed such abilities. Yet the movements had felt natural, like remembering rather than learning. Muscle memory from experiences he'd never had. The momentary advantage wouldn't last long. Already the fallen angels were beginning to recover, their expressions transforming from confusion to murder. Rage as they reassessed their target's threat level. "What are you?" demanded the leader, struggling to regain his footing. "That magic pattern, it shouldn't exist anymore." Before Issei could respond, before he could decide how much to reveal or deny, the air around them shimmered with sudden cold, temperature dropping so rapidly that frost formed on nearby surfaces. A new magic circle appeared. This one silver-blue rather than crimson, manifesting directly between Issei and his attackers. From within this circle stepped Grayfia Lucifuge, her maid uniform replaced by what appeared to be battle attire, a form-fitting combination of armor and formal wear that somehow managed to look both elegant and lethal. Her expression remained perfectly composed, though the temperature continued to drop as she surveyed the scene with glacial calm. This territory operates under the protection of the House of Gremory, she stated, her voice carrying absolute authority. Unauthorized aggression against monitored individuals will not be tolerated. The fallen angel's reactions to her appearance spoke volumes, immediate recognition followed by poorly concealed fear. Whatever reputation Grayfia carried in supernatural circles, it clearly commanded significant respect even from enemies. This doesn't concern Gremory territory claims, the leader attempted, though his voice lacked conviction. We act on direct orders regarding a destabilizing element. Your orders, Grayfia interrupted with soft precision, are irrelevant to my statement. You are trespassing. You have attacked a protected individual. These actions have consequences. As she spoke, ice began forming around the fallen angel's feet, creeping upward with unnatural speed. Their attempts to summon light weapons failed, as the freezing magic disrupted their energy manipulation. This incident will be reported to Governor Azazel as a violation of the non-aggression protocols, Grayfia continued implacably. I suggest you depart immediately before this becomes a diplomatic matter requiring formal response from Lord Lucifer himself. The threat, delivered with perfect composure yet unmistakable intent, achieved its purpose. The fallen angels exchanged glances before their leader nodded stiffly. This isn't finished, he warned, though the statement sounded hollow given their current predicament. The boy represents a greater threat than you realize. Quote, your concern is noted and dismissed, Grayfia replied without inflection. With a gesture, she released the ice constraining them. Go. Not requiring further encouragement, the three fallen angels launched skyward, wings beating powerfully as they retreated into the darkening evening sky. Only when they had completely disappeared from view did Grayfia turn her attention to Issei. Her expression revealing nothing of her thoughts. Are you injured? She inquired formally. No, Issei responded, still processing what had just occurred, both the attack and his own unexpected magical response. They didn't have time to hurt me before you arrived. The slight hesitation didn't escape Grayfia's notice. Her gaze dropped briefly to his hands, where faint traces of crimson energy still lingered despite his conscious effort to suppress the manifestation. I see, she said simply, though volumes of understanding resided in those two syllables. Perhaps we should continue this conversation in a more private setting. Without waiting for response, she created another transportation circle beneath them both. Unlike the jarring sensation Issei had experienced when Rias teleported him previously, Grayfia's magic felt strangely compatible, almost familiar, as it enveloped him in silver blue light. When the light faded, they stood in what appeared to be a private study. Its walls lined with ancient books and magical artifacts. A fire burned in an ornate fireplace, casting warm light across comfortable furnishings that somehow combined luxury with practicality. Nothing identified the location directly, though the quality of appointments suggested somewhere in devil territory rather than the human world. We won't be disturbed here, Grayfia stated, moving to a cabinet and withdrawing 2 glasses and a decanter containing amber liquid. This space exists outside normal detection methods. Even Lord Searzex cannot locate it without specific invitation. The casual revelation of having private space inaccessible even to her supposed master raised immediate questions about Grayfia's true position and authority. She poured a small amount of liquid into each glass, offering one to Issei. For the shock, she explained when he hesitated. It contains restorative properties specifically beneficial to those of devil physiology. The deliberate phrasing, the lack of pretense about his humanity, confirmed what Issei had already suspected. You know what I am. It wasn't a question, but Grayfia nodded once in acknowledgement. I suspected when we first met. I confirmed when I touched you. She gestured to the pendant around his neck. That merely accelerated what was already beginning. Issei took a careful sip from the offered glass. Finding the liquid warmed him from within in a way human alcohol never had. Why help me? Aren't you loyal to the current leadership, to Searsex? My circumstances are complex. For the first time, Grayfia's perfect composure showed slight cracks, subtle tension around her eyes, a barely perceptible tightening of her fingers around her glass. The Lucifuge clan served the throne for millennia before the Civil War. That connection exists beyond political circumstances or personal choices. So you're helping me because of some magical loyalty to my bloodline. The concept felt simultaneously reassuring and disturbing, the idea that her assistance stemmed from magical compulsion rather than genuine choice. Grayfia's expression softened marginally. Not compulsion, recognition. The magic merely confirms what you are, how I respond remains my choice. She set down her glass, regarding him with that same penetrating gaze he'd experienced during their first meeting. And Avenue waited a very long time to make that choice. The statement carried weight beyond its simple words, something personal and profound that Issei couldn't yet fully comprehend. Before he could inquire further, Grayfia continued more practically. What happened today, the magic you performed, represents a significant acceleration of your awakening. The pendant helped neutralize remaining seals, but your encounter with the fallen angels triggered innate defensive capabilities that might otherwise have remained dormant for weeks. I didn't consciously do anything, Issei admitted. My hands just moved on their own. Like muscle memory for something I've never actually done. Ancestral memory, Grayfia corrected. Royal bloodline abilities include access to magical knowledge accumulated across generations. Your body remembers what your conscious mind has not yet learned. She moved to a nearby bookshelf, selecting an ancient volume bound in what appeared to be crimson leather. This contains basic information about the abilities unique to your lineage. Study it when you can do so privately. The knowledge will accelerate your conscious control over instinctual responses. Issei accepted the offered book, feeling strange energy pulsing beneath his fingers as he touched the cover. This is moving very fast, he observed, understating the dramatic acceleration of his circumstances. A week ago I was just a normal student worrying about grades and girls. Events gather momentum once certain thresholds are crossed, Grayfia replied. Your power can no longer be effectively concealed, merely contextualized. The attack today proves that others have begun sensing your true nature, even if they don't yet understand what they're detecting. What happens next? The question encompassed far more than immediate plans. It sought direction for a transformation rapidly spinning beyond his control. Grayfia considered him with that same penetrating gaze that seemed to evaluate not just his current state but his potential futures. Tomorrow we begin formal training in Royal Devil Magic, ostensibly as sacred gear control exercises. We accelerate your education in underworld politics, history, and culture. And we prepare contingencies for the moment when concealment becomes impossible. How long do I have? Before everyone knows. Weeks at most. Days if circumstances force the issue. Her expression turned solemn. Make no mistake, Issei Hyodo, or whatever name you eventually choose to claim. Once your true nature becomes widely known, everything changes. Some will seek to destroy you. Others to control you. A few to genuinely support you. Distinguishing between these factions will determine not just your survival but the shape of whatever rule you eventually establish. The weight of responsibility implicit in her statement settled over Issei like a physical burden. Not just personal survival but potentially reshaping Devil society itself, responsibility. Far beyond anything he'd imagined for his future. And if I don't want to rule? He asked quietly. If I just want to live my life? Something like compassion flickered behind Grayfia's composed exterior. That option disappeared the moment your powers began manifesting. The question now is not whether you will rule, but how. With wisdom or tyranny, with innovation or tradition, with mercy or cruelty. She met his gaze directly. What kind of king you become remains entirely your choice. That freedom, at least, remains yours. As Issei absorbed these sobering truths, Grayfia glanced at an ornate clock on the mantelpiece. We should return you home before your absence raises questions. Your human parents remain unaware of these developments. Issei nodded, grateful for the change to a more immediate concern. They have no idea. I'm not sure how to even begin explaining any of this to them. Their protection becomes a priority, Grayfia noted practically. Once your identity becomes known, those seeking leverage against you will target anyone with emotional connection to you. The implication sent cold fear through Issei's system, not for himself but for the innocent people Ho had raised him with love and care despite having no biological connection to him. I need to keep them safe, he stated with sudden fierce determination. Grayfia nodded, apparently approving of this protective instinct. We will establish appropriate measures. For now, maintain your routine as normally as possible. Tomorrow's training will address immediate practical concerns. She created another transportation circle, this one calibrated to return him to a location near his home rather than directly inside, avoiding potential detection by monitoring spells Rias had likely established. Before activating it, she fixed him with one final significant look. Remember that regardless of what you learn or what powers awaken within you, your choices define your rule more than your bloodline ever could. The statement carried the weight of personal conviction rather than mere platitude. History offers examples of both benevolent and tyrannical kings from your line. Which legacy you continue remains yours to determine. With that profound advice still resonating in his mind, Issei found himself transported back to the human world, standing in a secluded park just blocks from his home. The ordinary suburban environment felt surreal after his brief visit to what was presumably devil territory, disconnected from the increasingly extraordinary reality of his existence. As he walked the final distance home, the book Grayfia had given him concealed in his school bag, Issei found himself contemplating her parting words with growing determination. If kingship had indeed become his inescapable destiny, then he would define that kingship on his own terms, not through blind adherence to ancestral patterns or others' expectations. Whatever throne awaited him in the Crimson World, he would approach it not as an entitled heir demanding restoration, but as a reformer seeking improvement. Not as a conqueror reclaiming territory, but as a protector defending those who needed protection. Starting with the human parents who had loved him unconditionally, never knowing they harbored a devil king within their ordinary home. Chapter 2 End. The End. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.